Before I read this morning, I want to thank everybody for being here today. As people were finding out I was preaching today, I got a lot of excuses. People said, "Oh, Don, I'd like to come see you preach, but I got to watch those old football reruns." So I do thank everybody for being here today. Today's reading is Exodus chapter 33, verses 12 through 23. Moses said to the Lord, "See, you've said to me, 'Bring up these people,' but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, 'I know you by name,' and you have also found favor in my sight. Now if I have found favor in your sight, show me your ways so that I may know you and find favor in your sight. Consider too that this nation is your people." He said, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." And he said to him, If your presence will not go, do not carry us up from here. For how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people, unless you go with us? In this way we shall be distinct, I and your people, from every people on the face of this earth." The Lord said to Moses, "I will do the very thing that you asked, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name." Moses said, "Show me your glory, I pray." And he said, "I will make all of my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you the name, the Lord. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But," he said, "you cannot see my face, for no one shall see me and live." And the Lord continued, "See, there is a place by me where you can stand on the rock. And while my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft of that rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen." This ends the reading. Check. Now, I'll tell you one thing about doing the reading and then having an anthem and then preaching is by the time I start preaching, you've totally forgotten what the reading was about. So I'm going to recap a little bit. And if you remember, over the past 6 weeks, Becky has been talking about the past, shining a light on our past, bringing out Moses freeing the slaves and coming forth to last week, where he had actually negotiated with God and said, don't kill the people. That's probably not a good idea. And totally convinced God not to kill the freed slaves. Which brings us to this week, where now that he's at all this accomplishment, he's having a casual conversation with God. And when I first went through the reading, looking for the message, the only thing that came to my mind was, does God talk to you? Do you have a casual conversation with God like Moses had? I think that he talks to all of us, but I know that he doesn't talk to me that way. I mean, I would love to be in a casual conversation and say, "What's your favorite episode of Star Trek?" I like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. How about you? All these fun things you could talk about to get to know him. And basically, what Moses was trying to do was get to know God better. Now, as Becky has been preaching the whole chapter of Exodus, or the whole book of Exodus, basically, one thing that I have noticed was how Moses has developed over the time. And I went back and I started reading a section in chapter 4 of Exodus. And I find this pretty funny, because when God first talked to Moses and said, "I've heard the complaints. I've heard the cries for help from the slaves. And Moses, I'm going to send you to free these slaves. Moses said, but suppose they do not believe me. He already started doubting. And the Lord said, well, I give you a staff, and you put that staff down in front of Pharaoh, and it'll turn into a snake. And that'll put the fear in. He's, well, I don't know. What about, that may not be enough. So God had to convince him, there's a second miracle we'll do, and another one. And don't worry, I'll take care of you. I'll follow you all the way through. And then finally, and this is the part that cracks me up, he says, oh my Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor now, that you have spoken to your servants. Basically, he's saying he has never spoken in front of public. He is not qualified to free the slaves. And when I first read this, I started thinking, you know, Moses started by crawling. And then as the weeks went through, that Becky was going through our past and how the slaves got freed, he started to walk. He was walking strong. Once he got the slaves out and brought them to the promised land, he was a leader. He has grown, and at this point, he is running to the point where he can convince God not to kill the people that he had just saved. And now, he's so fine with it, he's in a casual conversation with God. So does God talk to you? Now, every time I hear a Bible story where God comes down and talks to somebody, it always seems to be in the form of a command. Moses, free the slaves. Noah, build that ark. Jonah, go preach to Nineveh. And every one of these stories has a common theme. They all start, they have some trouble. And they have their trouble with God, and they are crawling. God is calling on these people to help. Now, I know that many people have been called to do things. And I always find it funny when I ask people, why do you do what you do? When I ask an accountant, oh, I like money. I like working with money. I'm an engineer. I want to make the world a better place, so I became an engineer. But the people that get called to do something always seem to be ministers. If you ever talk to a minister, I say, what got you into ministry? They just about all the time will say, I was called. I heard the calling and I answered. I said, yes, Lord, I will go and minister. I have yet to hear somebody be called to work at a wastewater treatment plant. That would be pretty funny. Why do you work at a wastewater treatment plant? Oh, God called me to work here. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Now, for those of you who don't know what a wastewater treatment plant is, just think that when you flush the toilet, all of that stuff has to go somewhere. And those that work at a wastewater treatment plant are the ones that receive it. Now, I will tell you a personal story. I got a call. God called me. I tried the old, no speak English. I didn't want the call. But no, he called me. And he said, Don, I want you to fix the finances in the church. And I said, well, God, you know, I'm not an accountant. I don't know if I can do this. I was crawling. And he said, let's get it done. He says, look, you know how to fix things. You know how to get things done. Go and fix the finances of your church. And I said, oh man, you know, I'm not cut out for this. You know, I build ethanol plants. I build drinking water. I do automation equipment. I do all these great things. Give me something bigger. I don't want to just fix the finances. This doesn't even make sense for me. And he said, Don, I said, what? And he said, how would you like to work at a wastewater treatment plant? Okay, I'll fix those finances. So I knew when I started, I was crawling. And it took some time before I could walk. And I knew that there's lots of jokes about churches and finance. And one of my favorites is by Flip Wilson. Flip Wilson talks about a preacher that's trying to raise money. And he said, this church needs to progress. And in order for it to progress, we need to start by crawling. Just like Moses when he started, we need to start by crawling. And the crowd yelled out and said, let it crawl, Rev, let it crawl. And he said, oh yeah. And he said, then when we have things set and we're good, we're going to stand straight and we're going to start to walk. And the congregation yelled out, let it walk, Rev, let it walk. And he said, oh yes, then we're walking, we're tall and we're proud and we're getting things done and this church is going to start to progress. And he said, then we will be running. We will see membership increase. Things will be great. We will be running. And the crowd said, let it run, Rev, let it run. And he said, in order for this church to run, we're going to need money. And somebody yells out in the back, let it crawl, Rev, let it crawl. Now, when I started on the finance committee many years ago, we were crawling. No one knew what a balance sheet was or why it was important. We kind of knew how many members we had, but because we didn't watch it according to the book of discipline, we weren't really sure. Our records were a mess. Every year, our attendance in church would drop every Sunday. Our membership had decreased. Our giving had decreased. We had to cut staff, and we had to cut back. We used to have a budget of $500,000. It is now down to about $300,000. In 2012, we could only pay half of our apportionments. Now, you look at this, you might think, oh man, we're in a downward spiral. But I do have some good news. It was in about 2012 we started to walk. In 2012, I got right up here and I asked everybody who's a pledger, would you increase your pledge? It started with Cooper and me. We increased ours. Went to church council, asked them. They increased theirs. We were up to a 30% increase. And then I came and I asked the congregation, will you increase yours? We have some things we need to fix in this church. And with the faith, we as a church had increased our pledges a grand total of 14%, which is great. The unfortunate thing is the amount of pledgers went down. However, the good news was our income had stayed steady. And that was good because in 2013, we were able to pay our pledges, our apportionments in full. We did not have to cut any staff. The attitude of the church started to change. And this all because it started right here. Last year, the pledge campaign, the theme was on gratitude. And would you know, the amount of pledgers did not drop. It stayed the same. We had 130 pledgers in 2013. We had 130 pledgers in 2014. This is great. The pledging amount had stayed the same. So in other words, we are coasting at the bottom. No more downward spiral. We've been straightening out the books. We've been looking good. Our auditor, Kip Kirkpatrick, who was not here he was one of the people who say he couldn't be here this morning. He is impressed with what we are doing. There's a lot of changes to do, and we are at the point where we are going to start to run and run well. I can tell you a few facts about this church. This church serves 330 families. We have 466 individual members. We have 397 pledging units. And although 130 of those actually pledge, 280 actually give. We are ready to run. Things are holding steady. And if you will see, when you came in, the pledging or the stewardship campaign envelopes are on the table. There's an envelope with your name on it. And we're doing a few things different this year. One is there's an envelope for every single pledging unit. In the past, if you had adult children, then only one letter would go to the whole family. But now, your adult children who are members, they get their own letter. So make sure when you find yours that you also find your adult children's letter. And if you have a child that's a member now, make sure you talk to them about giving. Take your pledge card, and as you fill out that pledge card, have them fill out theirs. There's been a comment that, a lot of young people don't give to the church. And it's not that they're any less of a giver than anybody else. It's not that they don't care. It's just we've never asked. So we're starting with an ask. We are asking 466 people to actually pledge this time. I would like to see the pledging units, or actual pledges, go from 130 to 150. The church needs an ego. I want to go to church council on November 13th and present the budget and say, we have more people pledging. We have more people interested in this church. Let's see the giving go up, because we take that money and we have programs that we're going to run. And one of the things we're doing too is we are giving our staff, the trustees, program staff, anybody that has any program in this church, the empowerment to do better. Here's a finance report. Here's a budget. You watch all this. We will help you. We will help you grow. We want to see growth in Vacation Bible School. We want to see growth in the winter retreats. We're on a roll. This church is going to run. And next week, I'll be presenting at the Faith Forum. I'm going to show you two financial documents, the balance sheet and the financial statement. I'm going to show you how to read those. And I'm going to show you how you can see if your church is really as healthy as we say it is. I'll show you all the lies. So we want to be successful, and it does start with you. I ask that you go, find your pledge envelope, fill it out, because I tell you, the future for this church is so bright. I think on Sunday mornings, we're going to have to start wearing shades. It's going to be that good. So does God talk to you? Of course He does. I want everybody to close their eyes and listen to what He is saying right now. He says, allow my glory to shine through so that we may heal a broken world. Go forth and fill out your pledge card. Praise be to God. Amen.